He swore he had made his last video about the Conjuring House.
This is only my second video on it, but I'm hoping it's my last.
He swore he would never go back, but then he changed his mind. The Conjuring House has been a controversial haunted location for a long time now, basically ever since the Warrens showed up at the front door 50 years ago. And since it was sold into new ownership in 2022, it's become much more controversial, some of which I've covered already in 2 previous videos. From the inside being obscenely decorated like a spirit Halloween, to Ankle Boy and Alphabet Girl's little party trick they did to deceive guests. It hasn't exactly been the most squeaky clean image an allegedly haunted location can have. But in just the past few months, things have gotten even worse. A barn fire that left one couple devastated.
A couple says they lost thousands of dollars worth of belongings in a barn fire on the Conjuring property.
A spirit that told the owner employees were stealing money.
John Arnold told me you've been stealing money out of the cash box for the past 2 months.
Even an alleged assassination plot.
I was being accused of some sort of an assassination attempt on her.
We'll also talk about this awful video. All coming up in my real last video on the Conjuring House. Parentheses, for real this time. Brief catch up if you haven't seen my previous 2 videos on the Conjuring House. Basically, a Massachusetts real estate developer named Jacqueline Nunez bought the house in 2022. The house was brought back into the spotlight once again by YouTubers Sam and Colby, specifically their interaction with 2 Conjuring House employees, Cody and Satori, or Kotori for short. Anyway, Kotori claimed that spirits can speak directly through them, through a series of knocks that happen when they're embracing each other. However, their little performance has come under a lot of online scrutiny, with many people, including me, concluding that this is basically just a magic trick and Cody's popping his ankle to make the series of ghost knocking sounds.
E-F-G-H-I.
It's Abigail.
Abigail Arnold. It's great to talk to you tonight.
Oh my God.
Jacqueline, the owner of the Conjuring House, got so fed up with the paranormal community being rightfully skeptical about Kotori that they posted this long rant on Facebook in March. At the end of the last video, I kinda laughed it off. But now the situation is no laughing matter, because there's a new rant, just like that one, posted almost every week on the Conjuring House Facebook page, and they're getting increasingly more erratic and frequent. But we'll get to those in a moment. First, you should know that almost everyone who worked at the Conjuring House is gone now, including Kotori. Satori posted this on Instagram in late June, stating that she and Cody, along with former owners Corey and Jen Heinzen and former employees Reed, Steve, and Aaron, have all voluntarily left the Conjuring House, citing a toxic work environment. So what kind of toxic work environment are we talking about? Well, if you can believe it, one that made local news.
In December, a fire tore through the barn on the property.
We got a call around midnight, I want to say, that the barn was on fire, and immediately we rushed down there, and it definitely was on fire.
Thanks for clarifying that this barn was on fire, Cody. But okay, a barn caught fire. Why does that have Kotori all shaken up?
A couple says they lost thousands of dollars worth of belongings in a barn fire on the Conjuring property and have been waiting more months to be made whole again.
Whoa. So Kotori lost some of their belongings in the barn fire, and they want the owner, Jacqueline, to pay for them. Although if I'm honest, I'm not really sure why yet. I guess it depends on what caused the fire. We did get one clarification about the cause, and that's that the barn fire was actually not caused by spirits. I think we can all breathe a huge sigh of relief with that cleared up. Jacqueline alleges that the fire was caused by an amateur painter that Kotori hired, who didn't dispose of some oily rags properly. However, Kotori say that they never hired the painter. Ooh, it's a mystery. Who hired the painter? Time to get to the bottom of this. But first, a word from today's sponsor, Factor. Factor is a meal delivery service that gives you fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals straight to your door. and they're ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code WOLF50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code WOLF50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. With summer winding down, I'm just about to get back to taking regular walks outside. I just need it to be about 20 degrees cooler out there. But until then, I can keep my fitness and nutrition goals in check with Factor's menu options like Calorie Smart or Protein Plus. And since Factor's flexible, I can change my order up every week. My rule is the hotter it is outside, the more meals I'm putting on my order that week. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code WOLF50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code WOLF50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to what I know you're dying to find out. Who exactly hired that painter? Apparently, it was Jacqueline who hired them. Investigation complete. In a Jason Hawes live stream with former employees of the Conjuring House, it was revealed that the mysterious painter was a guy named Steve Mills, who you read about earlier in the resignation statement, and he clarifies his employment status in the stream.
Steve, you were doing the work there. You were actually, she was talking about putting you on full time. So she gave you this job to actually do there, correct?
Correct, yep.
To be fair though, Steve's a member of Jason's organization TAPS, and Jason is Satori's father. You may know him best as that guy from the show Ghost Hunters. Just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying there was anything shady happening here, just that Steve isn't some random guy. The Hawes family knows him. In a story full of potentially unreliable narrators though, Jacqueline is by far the biggest one. In the past month, she fired caretaker and general manager Brian Dansereau because the ghost of John Arnold told her that Brian was stealing money from her.
I was given a couple of more texts by her telling me that John Arnold again told her I stole money from her. I've been psychically attacking her along with the previous staff. Therefore, she was not paying me anything.
So yeah, you heard correctly. Jacqueline claims that Brian not only has been stealing money, but also psychically attacking her. And this kind of paranoid delusion has unfortunately become a common theme in a lot of the Conjuring House's recent Facebook posts. The posts didn't start to get truly unhinged until this one from July 10th, which was partially in response to the resignation of the former staff. One thing you'll notice about these posts is that they tend to feature prominent and sometimes excessive profanity. She says here that the Conjuring House attracts hundreds of people from around the globe to partake in one of their f***ing experiences. So, I guess the ghosts get pretty wild after dark.
Not trying to be funny, not trying to get a laugh. Do any of these f***ers ever blast out of the wall and have like a huge cum shot?
I just asked you not to do this.
Here's a post from July 26 claiming that her social media has been hijacked and that her texts and voicemails are being intercepted. This post from August 7th claims that the Rhode Island governor is trying to silence her, and that NASA has discovered something unknown to the public. This post from August 18th claims that Mark Zuckerberg is personally trying to silence her post and is personally inciting hate against her. She also claims to be the Princess of Saudi Arabia. I could go on, but you get the idea. The Facebook posts are becoming both more erratic and more frequent. In addition to all this, Jacqueline has also been directly harassing a very vocal detractor of hers, Jason Hawes, who we just talked about earlier. Well, Jason and Jacqueline have been having a very public back and forth, starting from shortly after his daughter posted that resignation announcement in late June. On July 12th, Jason hosted a live stream with everyone who was named in the resignation announcement. Kotori, Corey and Jen Heinzen, Steve, Reed, and Aaron, all formerly from the Conjuring House. They talked for about 2 hours about Jacqueline and how she was verbally and psychologically abusive to them, most of which is just them reading out loud, angry text messages from her. When they're not showing screenshots of text messages, they're describing the abusive environment they were in the most opaque way possible, to the point where it got very frustrating to listen to.
A former employer of ours very much wanted to control certain narratives, and wanted to be able to have certain things done when they wanted to, and even when we were not very comfortable doing so. And sometimes we didn't even know certain things were going to happen until it was already decided for us.
What? I'm guessing by all that, they mean that Jacqueline wanted them to do the ankle popping method just on a whim for anybody who came along that wanted to see it. I have a theory about why they're being so careful about how they talk about this issue in particular, but don't worry, we'll have plenty of time for that later. Now back to the Jason versus Jacqueline bickering timeline. There were actually a couple of interesting points brought up in the stream. For example, before content creators could post any footage of their Conjuring House investigation to YouTube, they had to get it approved first.
The new rules at the Conjuring House, though, is, unless I'm confused, please let me know, are there rules set forth now that all footage has to be signed off on before it airs?
Yes.
Yes.
I had heard this before, but never confirmed by someone who worked there. It's not surprising, given the videos I've seen from Sam and Colby in Project Fear. There's one last bit of interesting info, and that's about how Jacqueline bought the Conjuring House.
Long story short, she felt entitled to it and put a lawsuit on us. She put a lien on the house and stopped us from looking at other people to purchase the house. She felt that an agreement that we signed, which was null and void in the state of Rhode Island, according to our lawyers, she felt that she was entitled to that house.
It's free real estate.
Yeah, just kind of an interesting bit of to throw on top of the gigantic pile of other interesting bits of that we've been accumulating so far. On July 22nd, Jason basically re-uploaded a video that fired General Manager Brian Dansereau uploaded to Facebook, all about how Jacqueline owed him a lot of back pay. Weeks worth of wage theft, in fact.
She threatened me. She threatened that if I tried to go public, if I tried to do anything to hurt her, she would hurt me. That she would go after me.
Just 2 days later, on July 24th, Jason responded to a Facebook post Jacqueline made, accusing him of attempting to assassinate her.
I'm told you knew of the assassination attempt on me. I will never be defeated or destroyed by any effing paranormal person now or at any time in the future. So effing be it.
There's a clip she posted on Facebook of a pickup truck on the Conjuring House property early in the morning, about 4 a.m., that she claims was driven by Jason.
At this point, I was being accused of some sort of an assassination attempt on her.
Jason claims to know who the truck belongs to and has their contact information. He says that they were guests there to check in for an overnight investigation, and this footage is of them finally giving up and leaving the Conjuring House because no one was there. He doesn't provide any evidence of this, but of course that's to protect these guests' personal information, I assume. Finally, on August 9th, Jason posted another update once again, showing various text messages from Jacqueline, once again alleging that he's an assassin and a terrorist and all sorts of other things. I think you get the picture. We don't need to read any more 7-paragraph long text messages to figure out that Jacqueline is not doing so well. Now that we're all caught up on this big mess, I'd like to give some of my thoughts on the situation. First of all, from everything that's been brought forth, the billions of text messages, all the stories from former employees, it's apparent that this was a very toxic work environment, and they were all justified in leaving the place. So I definitely empathize with everyone involved. You know, no one deserves to be threatened and harassed by their employer. I obviously don't know what this exact scenario was like for them, but I have had experience working with volatile and unpredictable personalities before, and you can feel trapped, you can feel gaslit, you can feel helpless. and it's a legitimately scary feeling. So I can absolutely empathize with them, and I think that this is a really tragic situation that they had to go through. All these accusations of assassination attempts and hacking and being the Princess of Saudi Arabia, it's obvious that Jacqueline needs help. And unfortunately, I have noticed that the paranormal community is generally not a place where mental health is taken seriously. One of my first thoughts when seeing all of this was, oh my God, what if people start saying that she's being possessed? Because just like I was talking about in my most recent video about the story behind haunted location Bobby Mackey's Music World, the paranormal community has a bad track record of attributing mental illness to demonic possession. It doesn't help that in her posts and texts, she repeatedly says, "I am told blank," or "I have been instructed to say blank." To me, this kind of language clearly suggests a mental health decline, and it bothers me that some will twist this into some fantasy narrative like the house is influencing her. In that regard, it doesn't seem like Jacqueline has any kind of actual support network that will get her the help she needs, whatever that help may be. I'm not qualified to make any kind of diagnosis, but it could be anything from schizophrenia to, as Jason hinted at in his latest video, what sounds like some kind of substance abuse.
This is a situation that has been amplified by medicating themselves certain ways. And I mean, this is an ongoing issue.
Whatever the particulars of her condition may be, she needs to get help. And I agree with a point that Jason makes in this same video that the only way she might get help is if people stop booking the Conjuring House. Since I've made a couple videos about the Conjuring House, I've had a lot of people ask me if I will go there and do an in-person investigation. I've actually had a number of people say that all my online sleuthing means nothing unless I go there in person. Now, one reason why I never did this was because the cost is prohibitive. Not only would I need to buy all the upmark ghost hunting equipment that I currently don't have, which would be hundreds of dollars by itself, to simply book an overnight stay at the Conjuring House under its current management, if you're a content creator, costs roughly $1,500. So you've got all that, a cross-country flight, convincing someone to be my cameraman and help me set things up. It just seems like a lot of trouble from my perspective, me walking around an empty 18th century building at night talking to myself. Just being real, okay? But probably the biggest reason why I haven't seriously considered a trip to the Conjuring House is because of the current management. I figured after I posted my first video on the place, and was very critical of it, that I was almost certainly blacklisted from even making a reservation. And when I saw Sam and Colby sign that huge waiver when they first got to the property, I didn't know exactly what the waiver entailed, but I figured I wouldn't be able to show everything I wanted to show. And turns out I was right about that.
All footage has to be signed off on before it airs.
And even beyond all the red tape, I just got weird vibes from the management. I would honestly feel uncomfortable being around them. Not just Jacqueline, but also Cody and Satori, to clarify. I think I've made it pretty clear in previous videos that I think Kotori are tricking people with their little method, and being in the same room with people who I believe are lying that big and that blatantly, that kind of freaks me out. But now, after seeing all the texts and all the Facebook posts, there's no way in hell I'd go there. Might get accused of being an assassin just for showing up. The Conjuring House desperately needs new management. Honestly, all the paranormal stuff aside, just because it's a historic landmark. It's a house that was originally built in 1736, and there's not a ton of houses like that left in the US. Now, I'm not sure how much of the house is still original. Might be a bit of a Ship of Theseus situation where bits and pieces have been replaced over time, but still, if nothing else, this is a historic building that needs to be properly preserved. If they could get someone new involved who would ditch all the corny, raggedy Ann dolls and Ouija boards and just let the place be a normal location and not a blatant money-milking venture, I think that would be a positive change for everyone involved. So those are all my thoughts on the location and the owner, but there's another aspect to this story that kind of intrigues me, and it has to do with our favorite paranormal couple, Kotori. Although I empathize with them having to go through all that they went through with their former employer, like I said, no one deserves to have to go through all that, and I meant it when I said that. But I noticed that Kotori tended to allude to their method a lot when talking about Jacqueline.
A former employer of ours very much wanted to control certain narratives, and wanted to be able to have certain things done when they wanted to.
Now, I'd guess that the reason they're making so many vague allusions here is to protect themselves legally in case anything goes to court. Now, you might ask, why would anything go to court? Well, apparently, Jacqueline has been threatening to expose Kotori's method as fake.
To the point where some of these messages then came in saying that you were going to say people were fake because you felt that was your best way to attack them. Her telling the world that you guys are phony and fake because you didn't want to go back to work there and work in this environment.
Like I mentioned at the end of my last Conjuring House video, in the state of Rhode Island, it's illegal to engage in any form of deception or dishonesty to gain a benefit, financial or otherwise. This is really vague language, open to interpretation, and I'm no lawyer, but just from the looks that were on their faces during that live stream, it really seems like they may be in danger of some actual legal repercussions here. And as you can imagine, the very last thing they'd want to do is prove the method is real in a court of law. But if you need more convincing that that's the case, Jason posted this video on his YouTube channel back in April. It's a 360 view video of Cody and Satori doing the method with their shoes off. This should be such an exciting time for us. After all, this is exactly what I've been asking for.
Good luck having Kotori prove that they can talk to ghosts in a court of law. They'll have to do it without their shoes on. And as we all know, the ghosts have a phobia of bare feet. So who knows if they'll even allow that.
We'd have to see if the spirits would want to do it.
So this is it. Proof that their method is real. Right? Hello. That's right. I'm back one last time with the green screen sweater. That means you're about to experience some premium debunking. First off, if you've made it this far into the video and aren't sure what this is even all about, well, on one hand, I applaud your patience, and on the other, I condemn your watching of these videos out of order. But I'll catch you up. So, Cody and Satori do this spirit communication method where she says letters of the alphabet, and then the spirit makes a knocking sound at a letter it wants to say, and then they do this over and over until the spirit spells out a word. The thing is, people who have extensively analyzed hours of footage of them doing this trick have concluded that the knocking sound is actually coming from Cody's body, specifically this ankle. I've already shouted him out a few different times, but I gotta give fellow YouTuber Mythos Paranormal credit for narrowing it down to Cody's right ankle. Mythos has looked at Cody's ankle for longer than any other human being on the planet has, probably including Satori. The sight of it probably makes him sick at this point, so sorry Mythos, we're gonna be looking at it a little bit longer. Anyway, so we think it's Cody popping his ankle to make the knocking sound, right? The thing is, we can't 100% confirm it because he always has shoes or socks on when they're doing this. So they've been requested for a long time to do it barefoot, which they've done in this video. However, I can only speak for myself, but I humbly requested that they do it barefoot at a neutral location. And that last part is really important. In order for this footage to mean anything or to prove anything, they need to do it at a location that they wouldn't be able to set up beforehand, preferably with a neutral third party present to verify these things. Unfortunately, in this video, they are in what looks to be some kind of barn that I'm guessing is owned by their cameraman friend here, whose name is Ken, I think. Ken DaCosta. Right away, the entire experiment is invalidated. We don't know what's under those floorboards. We don't know what's on top of this roof. We don't know if one of these people holding the cameras is using some device to make the knocking sound. We don't know if the knocking sound is being added in post-production. And the reason we can't know any of these things is because the location and the third-party observers are compromised. They're people that Kotori know, and this is a location that they chose. We also have a second, smaller problem, and that's that it's 360-degree video. The benefit of the video being 360 is that you get to see the empty wall here, just in case you thought there was a giant conspicuous knocking device hidden back there. The added range of view, though, has a sacrifice to it, and that's video quality. The video quality of 360 videos is generally pretty bad, and this one is no exception. You can't see much detail of anything. So if you want to do something like zoom in on Cody's ankle, it's going to get very pixelated very quickly. It doesn't help that the camera was set up 300,000 yards away from them. Now thankfully, Kotori uploaded the footage from the handheld cameras too, which zooms in on their feet and adds a little more detail. It's still not great, but it is a little better. The video starts off with this disarming message from Jason. This in no way is me pushing anything or any view. I was not there. This was not my equipment. I'm sharing what I was given. Hashtag you decide. Ooh, my favorite phrase. Oh, I've already decided, but I will reaffirm my decision here. The very first thing that happens in the video, and I was in disbelief when I saw this, they start off by talking to some mystery person downstairs, and Ken says they'll see him later. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think that this is what's happening, but that person could have just stooped down and grabbed a broomstick to knock on the ceiling, you know? And this is why this video doesn't prove anything. There's no truly neutral third party present to vet a controlled environment. Anyway, let's hear some knocks.
J, K, L, M, L, L, M.
Now, you may notice, first of all, that the knocking sound is very different from how it sounds in other videos. I think this just comes down to a different microphone being used, but it's worth noting. Anyway, watch Cody's feet here. I know you can barely see them because we're roughly 750 meters away, but you can see his toes curl right after the knock. And if it happened just the one time, I wouldn't think much of it, but it happens a lot.
E, F, F, R, S, T, T. Can you do two more as fast as you can? We got two. Okay.
It happens over and over in this video. You know, you would think if you were Cody that you would recognize how important it would be to not move your feet at all. You know that it's a popular theory that you're popping your ankle. You know that people are going to be zooming in on it to see how it moves, so you'd think it would be really important for you to not move your feet at all if you could help it. If only he could help it, huh?
Your Bill, who owns this house's father? And we're so thankful he let us use his location for this.
You did good, man. We love Bill.
Is there anything else you'd like to say? Okay. How many words?
To put it bluntly, I think this little barefoot video they did not help their case at all. In fact, I think it actively hurt their case. The experiment is flawed from the beginning because it's not in a truly controlled environment. And the funny part of all this to me is that even though they're on home turf, so to speak, with a familiar location and friends in the room with them, they still mess up. And it's not just Cody's feet moving. In all the sessions I've seen, Satori makes sure whatever ghost they're talking to knows the knocking rules before they begin. She tells them she's going to recite the alphabet, yada yada yada.
I'm going to go through the alphabet. When I get to the first letter of your name, you're going to knock. I'll restart. When I get to the second letter, you're going to knock, and I'll keep restarting until I spell out things, okay? When I get to the first letter, you knock. I will restart. When I get to the second letter, you knock, and I'll keep restarting until we spell it out, okay?
And she also mentions that they should knock once for yes and twice for no.
We're gonna play a game. 1 for yes, 2 for no, of that same noise, okay?
1 for yes, 2 for no, okay?
But she never sets these rules for the barn ghost. Yet somehow the ghost immediately understands the alphabet game, and they even know the once for yes, twice for no rule.
Have you been waiting for us? No, you haven't.
Now, how did the ghost know that it was 2 knocks for no? Unless... So yeah, this barefoot video is a joke. And the worst part is that they're gonna treat this flawed experiment as if they did exactly what the skeptics wanted. And just like they thought, the skeptics weren't satisfied. Because no matter what Kotori do, the skeptics will never believe. But the reality is, they're not actually trying to provide real concrete proof. They're only keeping up appearances so the people who already believe them will point to this and say, "See? They did what all the haters wanted." And they'll feel strengthened in their existing beliefs. Like I said, all they have to do is do the method barefoot in a truly neutral, controlled location. But I think we'll probably all be dead before they let that happen. I make these paranormal videos for a number of reasons. For one thing, I want to try to do what I can to promote media literacy and critical thinking. I want to encourage people to be grounded in a scientifically based understanding of reality. Sometimes I get feedback from people who watch these videos, not just about the Conjuring House, but other paranormal topics, and they say things like, "So it's fake. What's the harm? It's just some silly ghost stories. Let them have fun with it. They're not hurting anybody." I want to be careful how I say this next part because I don't want anything to be misconstrued, but reading these Facebook posts and text messages from Jacqueline and seeing that they become more and more erratic, this is what it can look like when you have a disconnect from reality. That disconnection can harm other people, and in this extreme case, it has. Now, I'm not saying that Jacqueline's disconnect arose from any kind of belief in the paranormal or anything, but I am saying that this is a radical example of why I believe being grounded in a scientific reality is so important. But yeah, it's honestly a tragedy, all that's happening with the Conjuring House now. But while the owner's words and actions are clearly the standout problem here, I don't think this lets Kotori off the hook for doubling and tripling down on what I believe to be a pretty despicable scam they've been pulling. And I do worry that that's getting lost in the shuffle here. Because while Jason Hawes has been going hard, like every week, every other week, speaking out about what's happening at the Conjuring House now, and rightfully so. But I don't know. It's kind of funny watching him be like, something fishy is going on over there at the Conjuring House. Like, yeah, something fishy has been going on over there. At least since last fall, possibly since 1971. I'm just saying, I don't think the Conjuring House's problems begin and end with the current owner. And that we shouldn't forget that there was a very public controversy before the owner started making all those Facebook posts. If we can all agree on one thing though, I hope it's that new management at the Conjuring House would be a great first step to improving the place. If not for the guest experience and the safety of the current staff, then at least for the historic value of the home. Thanks for watching. I know this wasn't my usual super detailed deep dive, but you know, maybe not every video I make has to be an hour and a half long. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Think critically.